Dear chosen one, they gathered in the shadows and called your name, not to honor you, but to erase you. Governments, systems, structures of power that should never have noticed someone like you. They united with one purpose: to stop you. And yet, here you stand, breathing, unbroken, still walking the path they tried to bury. Have you ever stopped to ask yourself why? Because the answer to that question will shatter every lie you've believed about your own insignificance. Because this wasn't random persecution. This wasn't bad luck or unfortunate timing. This was a coordinated spiritual assault disguised as bureaucratic obstacles, legal barriers, financial blockades, and social isolation. They moved against you with precision, with resources, with strategy, and somewhere deep in your spirit, you felt it. The invisible hand pushing doors closed, the voices whispering your name in rooms you were never invited to. The systematic dismantling of everything you tried to build. You weren't imagining it. It was real. And it was intentional. But here's the revelation that will change everything you thought you understood about your life. They failed. Not because they weren't powerful enough. Not because they didn't try hard enough. They failed because when they conspired against you, they accidentally revealed who you really are. They showed you what you couldn't see in the mirror. They confirmed what heaven already knew. You are not who you thought you were. You are so much more, and that terrifies them. Before we go deeper into this revelation, hit that like button, subscribe to this channel, and drop the word revealed in the comments to seal this moment and declare to the universe that you recognize the truth of your identity. And if you're ready to step into the prosperity that's been waiting for you, both spiritually and financially, check out the ebook, The Call to Prosperity. It's a manual with 10 powerful steps to activate the abundance that God destined for your life. You heard this message for a reason, and this is your call to prosperity, where you will be guided towards financial abundance. The link is in the description and in the first comment. Let me take you back to the moments you thought were your darkest hours. The times when opportunity after opportunity vanished like smoke. When doors that should have opened slammed in your face. When people who promised support suddenly went silent. When resources dried up for no logical reason. When your reputation was attacked by those who didn't even know you. You remember those moments, don't you? They weren't isolated incidents. They were connected, orchestrated. Most people go through life facing normal resistance. A job rejection here, a relationship challenge there, a financial setback now and then. That's the human experience. But what you've experienced goes beyond normal. It's been systematic. Multiple areas of your life under attack simultaneously. Different sectors, different people, different circumstances, all moving against you at the same time. That's not coincidence. That's coordination. And coordination requires a reason. Here's what you need to understand. The enemy doesn't waste ammunition on empty targets. Governments don't mobilize resources against people who pose no threat. Systems don't coordinate attacks against those who can be easily controlled or manipulated. The very fact that you've experienced this level of opposition is your first clue. You matter more than you know. You carry something that disrupts their plans. Your existence alone threatens structures that have stood for generations. Think about it. How many people do you know who face the same intensity of blockage? How many have felt the weight of institutional resistance pressing down on every avenue they try to walk? Not many, because not many carry what you carry. Not many have been marked by heaven for the assignment you've been given. And those who have been marked always face this level of warfare. It's the signature of the called. You've probably asked God why. Why me? Why this much pain? Why this much resistance? Why can't I just have a normal life like everyone else? And here's the answer you've been waiting for. Because you were never designed for normal. Normal is for those whose lives won't shift the spiritual atmosphere. Normal is for those who can be absorbed into existing systems without disrupting anything. But you were built to disrupt, to challenge, to expose, to transform. And they saw it before you did. While you were still trying to fit in, trying to be accepted, trying to find your place in their world, they were already identifying you as a threat. Not because of what you were doing, but because of what you carried. The frequency of your spirit, the light in your eyes, the refusal to bow that lived in your DNA, even when you didn't recognize it yourself. They knew, and they moved against you preemptively. This is the part that will blow your mind. Their conspiracy against you was actually heaven's strategy to reveal you to yourself. God allowed them to come at you not because He was absent, but because He knew you needed to see what they saw. You needed to feel the weight of their attention to understand the magnitude of your calling. You wouldn't have believed it if someone just told you. You had to experience the opposition to recognize the assignment. Every closed door was a redirect. Every blocked opportunity was a protection. Every person who walked away was making room for the right ones. Every financial drought was forcing you to learn supernatural provision. Every attack on your character was burning away the need for human validation. Every moment of isolation was separating you from systems that would have compromised your calling. It all had purpose. Divine, strategic, intentional purpose. But they didn't know that. The governments, the systems, the structures of power, they thought they were destroying you. They measured your potential by human standards and concluded you could be stopped. They saw your resources and decided you were vulnerable. They observed your connections and determined you were isolated enough to eliminate. They made their moves based on what they could see, and that was their first mistake. Because what they couldn't see was the invisible hand that had already marked you. The anointing that doesn't show up on surveillance cameras, the favor that doesn't register in their databases, the protection that their weapons can't penetrate, the provision that flows from sources they don't control. They were fighting in the natural realm against someone who was anchored in the supernatural. That's a battle they were destined to lose from the beginning. You weren't surviving by your own strength. You were being held by a force they couldn't calculate. Every time they pushed, something pushed back harder. Every time they closed a door, 3 more opened in directions they weren't watching. Every time they cut off a resource, provision came from unexpected places. They kept attacking, kept strategizing, kept mobilizing, and nothing worked. And that frustrated them, confused them, made them question their own intelligence and power. And you were in the middle of it, wondering if you would make it, questioning your own sanity, doubting whether this fight was worth it, wondering if maybe you should just give up, blend in, disappear into the crowd where no one would notice you anymore. You were so focused on survival that you didn't see the larger picture. You didn't recognize that your survival itself was the miracle. Your refusal to break was the testimony. Your continued existence was the victory. Because here's what happens when heaven marks someone. They become untouchable by earthly powers. Not untouchable in the sense that they won't face attacks. You've clearly faced plenty. But untouchable in the sense that nothing can accomplish its intended purpose. The attacks come, but they don't destroy. The conspiracies form, but they don't succeed. The weapons are forged, but they don't prosper. It's written in Isaiah, "No weapon formed against you shall prosper." Not no weapon formed, but no weapon shall prosper. The formation happens. The attack is real. But the outcome is already determined. They failed because they were fighting against a covenant they didn't know existed. A blood-sealed promise between heaven and your destiny. Before you were born, before you took your first breath, before you made your first choice, God spoke your name and assigned you a purpose. And when God assigns, He also protects. When God calls, He also covers. When God sends, He also sustains. That's not religious theory. That's spiritual law. And spiritual law supersedes natural law every single time. Think about the biblical pattern. Joseph was conspired against by his own brothers, sold into slavery, falsely accused, thrown into prison, and still ended up second in command of Egypt. Moses had a death sentence on his life as an infant, grew up in the house of his enemy, was exiled to the wilderness, and still led millions out of bondage. David was hunted by a king with an entire army, forced to hide in caves, betrayed by those he trusted, and still took the throne. Daniel was thrown into a den of lions by government decree and walked out without a scratch. What do all these stories have in common? Government-level opposition, coordinated attacks, multiple forces aligned against one person. And in every case, the person being attacked was carrying something that would shift nations. They weren't random victims of injustice. They were marked carriers of divine purpose facing predictable resistance. The pattern repeats because the spiritual dynamics don't change. When heaven marks you for kingdom impact, hell mobilizes to stop you. It's that simple, and it's that profound. So when you look at the coordinated opposition you've faced, stop seeing it as evidence of your weakness. Start seeing it as confirmation of your assignment. They didn't waste their time and resources on someone insignificant. They didn't organize multiple systems against someone who posed no real threat. They saw what God planted in you, and they panicked. That panic manifested as persecution, and that persecution became your certification. You are who heaven says you are, and their attack proved it. Now let's talk about what you carry that scares them so much. It's not just your potential. Lots of people have potential. It's not just your gifts. Many people are talented. It's not just your intelligence or your resources or your connections. What you carry is something far more dangerous to corrupt systems. Incorruptibility. They couldn't buy you. They couldn't seduce you. They couldn't compromise you. And a person who cannot be corrupted cannot be controlled. And a person who cannot be controlled is a threat to every system built on control. This is why the attack was so intense. They tried everything. They offered you shortcuts that required moral compromise. You refused. They dangled opportunities that would have silenced your voice. You walked away. They promised you acceptance if you would just blend in and stop shining so bright. You kept shining. Every test was designed to find your price, to locate your breaking point, to discover what would make you bow. And you didn't bow. Not because you're superhuman, but because something in your spirit wouldn't allow it. That something is the seal of God, the mark of the called, the DNA of the chosen. It's not arrogance, it's assignment. It's not stubbornness, it's obedience to a voice they can't hear. You've been frustrating to them because you don't operate by the rules they understand. You don't respond to the pressures that work on everyone else. You don't break at the points where others shatter. And that's not because you're stronger. It's because you're anchored to something they can't see or access or destroy. Your light is more than metaphorical. It's actual spiritual frequency. It's the presence of God radiating through a human vessel. And that light does something to darkness. It exposes it. Just by existing in your authenticity, Just by walking in your truth, just by refusing to dim yourself to make others comfortable, you reveal the shadows. You make corruption visible. You make lies obvious. You make compromise look like what it really is. And those who profit from darkness hate nothing more than light they can't extinguish. So they tried to extinguish you. They really did. They pulled levers of power that should have crushed you. They activated networks that should have isolated you completely. They cut off streams that should have left you desperate enough to compromise. They attacked your character in ways that should have destroyed your credibility. They created obstacles that should have forced you to quit. They did everything their playbook said would work. And you're still here, still standing, still shining, still refusing to bow. Do you understand what that means? It means their best wasn't good enough. Their full arsenal was insufficient. Their coordinated effort failed. Not because they held back, they didn't. Not because they underestimated you, they actually overestimated their own power. They failed because they were fighting against heaven itself. And no government, no system, no structure of earthly power can stand against the God who made them. When they touched you, they touched the apple of God's eye. And that's a line you don't cross without consequences. The consequences haven't all manifested yet, but they're coming. Spiritual law guarantees it. What they meant for evil, God is turning for good. The doors they closed are redirecting you to better ones. The resources they blocked are forcing you to discover supernatural provision. The people they turned against you are making room for divine connections. The reputation they tried to destroy is being rebuilt by God Himself, with a foundation they can't shake. Everything they did to stop you is being recycled by heaven into fuel for your destiny. And here's where it gets even more profound. You didn't need to defend yourself. You didn't need to fight back in their arena using their weapons. You didn't need to play their games or match their tactics. All you needed to do was remain. Stay in position. Keep walking. Refuse to quit. Because the battle was never yours to fight in the first place. It was God's. And when God fights for you, victory is guaranteed. It's just a matter of time before what He's already declared in heaven manifests on earth. There were moments when you felt abandoned, weren't there? Moments when you cried out and heaven seemed silent. Moments when you looked around for help and saw no one. Moments when you wondered if God had forgotten you, if the promises were lies, if you had misheard your calling. Those were the hardest moments. The moments when you had to choose to believe what you couldn't see, to trust what you couldn't feel, to stand when everything in you wanted to collapse. But even in those moments, you weren't alone. Especially in those moments, God was doing His deepest work. He was building something in you that couldn't be built in comfort, forging a faith that fire couldn't destroy, developing a strength that pressure couldn't break, creating a testimony that would shake nations. The silence wasn't absence, it was strategy. He was quiet because He was working, and the work He was doing in the invisible realm was far more important than the work you could see. Every time you chose to worship in the wilderness, you were shifting spiritual atmospheres. Every time you declared truth when circumstances screamed lies, you were releasing heaven's response. Every time you forgave those who betrayed you, you were activating supernatural vindication. Every time you blessed those who cursed you, you were heaping coals of fire on their heads. Every act of obedience in the darkness was registering in the light. Nothing was wasted. Nothing was unseen. Heaven was recording every moment of faithfulness. And while you were faithfully walking through your darkest valley, God was systematically dismantling every structure that stood against you. Not with loud dramatic displays, though those are coming, but with precise strategic movements. A key person removed here. A policy changed there. A door opened in an unexpected place. A resource released from a source you didn't know existed. He was working the chessboard, moving pieces, setting up the checkmate. And the opponents never saw it coming because they were too focused on attacking you. They thought you were the threat, but you were just the catalyst. The real threat was the God who stood behind you, the kingdoms of heaven backing your assignment, the angelic hosts assigned to your protection, the cloud of witnesses cheering your perseverance, the blood of Jesus covering your weaknesses, the Spirit of God breathing life into your weary bones. You were never alone in this fight. You were the visible tip of an invisible army, and that army doesn't lose. Now let's address the question you've been carrying. Why did it have to be this hard? Why couldn't God have just given you an easy path? Why all the opposition, the pain, the tears, the sleepless nights? Here's the truth. Easy paths don't produce the kind of warrior you're being called to be. Smooth roads don't develop the discernment you'll need for what's ahead. Comfortable seasons don't forge the unshakable faith required for your assignment. You weren't being punished. You were being prepared. Every attack taught you something essential. Every betrayal showed you what loyalty really looks like. Every closed door trained you to recognize divine redirection. Every financial drought forced you to learn dependence on God instead of systems. Every moment of isolation taught you to hear His voice without the noise of human opinion. Every character assassination burned away your need for man's approval. You graduated from a school most people never even enroll in. And now you carry wisdom that can't be taught, only earned. The governments conspired against you, yes, but God conspired for you. And His conspiracy was more intricate, more powerful, more effective than anything they could devise. While they were plotting your downfall, He was orchestrating your promotion. While they were whispering your name in dark rooms, He was declaring your destiny in heavenly courts. While they were mobilizing their resources, He was multiplying yours supernaturally. Their conspiracy revealed your identity. His conspiracy secured your victory. You want proof? Look at your life right now. After everything they threw at you, you're still here. After all the doors they closed, you're still moving forward. After all the attacks on your character, people who matter still believe in you. After all the financial blockades, you're still provided for. After all the isolation, you've found connections that actually matter. After all the darkness, your light is still shining. That's not luck. That's not coincidence. That's the hand of God refusing to let their plans succeed. And it infuriates them. Because by all natural calculations, you should be destroyed by now. You should have given up, compromised, disappeared, or broken. But you didn't. And every day you remain standing is another day their failure is on display. Every step you take forward is another testimony to their powerlessness. Every breath you take is another declaration that they cannot stop what God has ordained. Your existence has become their torment. And that's poetic justice. But here's what you need to understand going forward. This isn't over. The conspiracy failed, yes. But the enemy doesn't give up just because one strategy didn't work. He adapts, he changes tactics, he comes from different angles. The attacks will continue, just in different forms. But now you know something you didn't know before. Now you understand who you really are. Now you recognize the protection you carry. Now you've seen with your own eyes that what God has joined together, no man can separate. And that knowledge changes everything. You're no longer the person who questions whether you're really called. You've seen the evidence. The intensity of the opposition is proportional to the significance of the assignment. That's spiritual mathematics. They wouldn't have mobilized governments against someone carrying a small purpose. They wouldn't have coordinated systems against someone with a limited impact. The scale of the attack reveals the scale of your destiny. And your destiny is massive, world-changing, generation-shifting, kingdom advancing. That's not pride talking, that's prophetic recognition. Now let's talk about what happens next, because surviving the conspiracy was just phase 1. Now comes the manifestation. Now comes the unveiling. Now comes the moment when what was done in secret gets revealed in public. When what was whispered in darkness gets shouted from rooftops. When what was built in the wilderness gets displayed in the palace. God didn't preserve you just so you could live quietly in the shadows. He preserved you because He has a platform prepared, and that platform requires someone who's been tested and proven. You've been in the proving ground. Every test you passed, every temptation you resisted, every moment you chose obedience over comfort, it all counted. Heaven was watching, recording, measuring, making sure you were ready for what's coming, because what's coming is bigger than anything you've imagined. The opposition you faced was preparation for the opposition you'll face at the next level. But now you're equipped. Now you're trained. Now you know how to stand when everything around you is shaking. The governments that conspired against you didn't just fail, they actually strengthened you. They thought they were weakening you, but they were training you. Every attack was a lesson in spiritual warfare. Every betrayal was a masterclass in discernment. Every closed door was teaching you to recognize divine timing. Every financial drought was a seminar in supernatural provision. They paid for your education with their opposition. And now you're graduating with honors, ready to walk into assignment with wisdom they could never possess. Here's what they don't understand. You can't destroy someone God is building. You can delay them, frustrate them, attack them, but you cannot destroy them. Because the building process is in God's hands, not yours. And God doesn't start projects He doesn't finish. He doesn't call people He won't equip. He doesn't send people He won't sustain. You are His workmanship, created in Christ Jesus for good works, which He prepared beforehand. The emphasis is on prepared beforehand. Before you faced the conspiracy, the victory was already prepared. Before the attack came, the defense was already in place. Before they moved, God had already moved. This is the part that should give you chills. Everything that happened to you was already factored into the plan. God didn't need to scramble when the governments came after you. He didn't need to call an emergency meeting in heaven to figure out how to save you. He wasn't surprised or caught off guard. He saw it coming before you were born, and He built the solution into your DNA. The resilience you carry isn't something you developed. It was something you were born with. The strength you've accessed isn't something you created. It was already placed in you before you needed it. You've been walking in provision you didn't know existed, drawing from wells you didn't dig, eating fruit from trees you didn't plant, living off resources that appeared out of nowhere. That's not luck. That's the fulfillment of ancient promises. When God called Abraham, He promised to bless him and make him a blessing. When God called Moses, He promised to be with his mouth and teach him what to say. When God called Joshua, He promised that no man would be able to stand before him all the days of his life. And when God called you, He made promises too. Specific, personal, irrevocable. And He's been keeping them even when you didn't realize it. Every time provision showed up at the last minute, that was a kept promise. Every time a door opened right when you needed it, that was a kept promise. Every time someone showed up with exactly what you needed, that was a kept promise. Every time you found strength you didn't have a moment before, that was a kept promise. God doesn't promise and then forget. He doesn't commit and then abandon. His word is His bond. And His bond is unbreakable. The governments learned that the hard way. You're learning it the beautiful way. But there's a responsibility that comes with this revelation. You can't just receive this truth and go back to living small. You can't recognize your identity and then hide it under a bushel. You can't understand the magnitude of your calling and then shrink back into the crowd. That would be an insult to everything God invested in keeping you alive. That would be a waste of all the warfare you survived. That would be a betrayal of the destiny that's been waiting for you to step into it. You have to move forward now, boldly, intentionally, unapologetically. This is where many chosen ones fail. They survive the attack, recognize their calling, see the miracle of their preservation, and then they get scared of the exposure that comes with manifestation. They prefer the safety of anonymity to the vulnerability of visibility. They choose comfort over calling. They settle for survival instead of stepping into significance. Don't be that person. Don't waste your wilderness experience by refusing to enter your promised land. Don't survive the conspiracy just to hide from your destiny. That's not why God brought you through. He brought you through to bring you out. And bringing you out means putting you on display. Yes, that's terrifying. Yes, that means more attacks will come. Yes, that means higher levels of opposition. But you're ready now. You weren't ready before. That's why you had to go through what you went through. But now you know who you are. Now you know whose you are. Now you understand the protection you carry. Now you recognize the pattern of provision. Now you've seen with your own eyes that what God starts, He finishes. Now you have a testimony that can withstand scrutiny. Now you have a faith that fire couldn't destroy. Now you're dangerous. Not to people, but to systems of darkness. And that's exactly what the world needs right now. Not more people playing it safe. Not more believers hiding their light. Not more chosen ones shrinking back from their assignments because they're afraid of the cost. The world needs you to step into the fullness of who God made you to be, to walk in the authority that was purchased for you, to speak with the voice that was given to you, to move with the confidence that comes from knowing heaven has your back. The conspiracy failed because your manifestation is essential. You're not optional. You're necessary. So here's what you do with this revelation. You walk differently. You talk differently. You carry yourself with the quiet confidence of someone who's been through hell and came out refined. You don't need to announce your story to everyone. Your presence announces it. The way you stand when others would crumble. The way you smile when others would despair. The way you keep moving forward when others would quit. That's the testimony. That's the evidence. That's the proof that you are who heaven says you are. And you stop apologizing for your light. Stop dimming yourself to make insecure people comfortable. Stop shrinking to fit into spaces that were never designed for your magnitude. Stop explaining yourself to people who are determined to misunderstand you. You are who you are by divine design, not human accident. And anyone who can't handle your light isn't meant to be in your circle anyway. Their discomfort is not your responsibility. Your obedience is. You also stop waiting for permission from systems that tried to destroy you. You don't need their approval to walk in your calling. You don't need their endorsement to operate in your gifts. You don't need their validation to know you're on the right path. Heaven already validated you. The conspiracy already confirmed you. The survival already proved you. Everything else is just noise. Learn to move forward without waiting for the applause of those who wanted you to fail. Here's the practical reality. You'll face criticism from the same people who couldn't break you. They'll call you arrogant for walking in confidence. They'll call you divisive for refusing to compromise. They'll call you extreme for taking God seriously. Let them talk. Their words have no power over someone who's been sealed by God. You're not who they say you are. You're who He says you are. And His opinion is the only one that alters reality. You'll also need to develop new levels of discernment, because not everyone who approaches you now comes with pure motives. Some will come to study you, to figure out how you survived so they can develop better attacks. Some will come to befriend you so they can betray you from the inside. Some will come with opportunities designed to compromise you in subtle ways. The enemy doesn't give up, he just gets sneakier. But you've been trained for this. Trust the unease in your spirit. Honor the red flags. Guard your anointing fiercely. And understand that your next season will require different relationships. Some people who walked with you through the wilderness won't be able to walk with you into the palace. Not because they're bad people, but because they're not assigned to that chapter. Let them go with love. Don't drag people into places they're not called to be, just because you're afraid of loneliness. God will send the right people at the right time. Your job is to stay sensitive to His leading and courageous enough to release what no longer fits. There's also a new level of stewardship required. Everything God gives you now, resources, influence, platforms, connections, comes with responsibility. You're not being blessed just for your own benefit. You're being blessed so you can be a conduit of blessing to others, so you can fund kingdom work, so you can open doors for those coming behind you, so you can speak truth to power, so you can model what it looks like to walk in integrity at high levels. The blessing is the tool, not the goal. This means you'll need to stay humble even as you're being elevated. Pride is what caused Lucifer's fall, and it can cause yours too if you're not careful. Remember that everything you have is on loan from heaven. The gifts, the anointing, the favor, the protection, none of it is yours. It's His, flowing through you. The moment you start to think you earned it, or deserve it, or own it, you've stepped into dangerous territory. Stay grateful. Stay dependent. Stay aware that without Him, you can do nothing. You'll also need to develop a stronger prayer life. The wilderness forced you to pray desperately. Now, you need to pray strategically. You're moving into territories where the stakes are higher, the opposition is smarter, and the consequences of missteps are more severe. You can't afford to move without clear direction from heaven. You can't afford to speak without hearing His voice first. You can't afford to make decisions based on human logic alone. Stay connected to the source. Let prayer be your first response, not your last resort. And please, don't rush the process. I know you're eager to see the full manifestation. I know you're tired of waiting. I know you want the public vindication now, but there's still refining happening. There are still lessons to learn. There are still character adjustments God is making in you. If He promoted you before you were ready, the elevation would destroy you. Trust His timing. Trust His pacing. Trust that He knows exactly when to open which door. Your job is to stay faithful in the current assignment while He prepares you for the next one. Remember that the goal isn't fame or recognition or even vindication. The goal is alignment with your divine purpose. The goal is maximum kingdom impact. The goal is lives transformed, souls saved, chains broken, and God glorified. If you keep that as your true north, you'll navigate the coming season with wisdom. If you lose sight of that and start chasing the spotlight instead of the mission, you'll drift into territory where God's protection isn't guaranteed. Stay mission-focused. Let the recognition come as a byproduct, not as the objective. And when you finally step onto the platform God has prepared, don't forget where you came from. Don't forget the pit He pulled you out of. Don't forget the valley where He met you. Don't forget the lessons learned in the darkness, because those memories will keep you grounded. Those memories will fuel your compassion for others who are currently in their own conspiracies. Those memories will remind you that this isn't about you. It's about the God who kept you when the world wanted you destroyed. The conspiracy failed, but the mission continues. You're not done yet. You're just getting started. Everything up until now was preparation. The real work begins now, and you're ready for it, because you've been tested in ways most people will never understand. You've been refined in fires that would have consumed weaker vessels. You've been pressed in ways that revealed what you're truly made of. And what you're made of is pure gold, unbreakable, incorruptible, eternal. The governments saw a threat and tried to eliminate it. God saw a weapon and decided to sharpen it. Their attack was your sharpening process. Every strike against you honed your edge. Every assault refined your blade. Now you're a weapon in the hands of the Almighty, ready to cut through darkness wherever He sends you. And He's sending you into places that need your specific frequency. Spaces that have been waiting for someone who carries what you carry. Territories that have been held by darkness because no one with enough light was willing to enter. You're the answer to prayers people haven't even prayed yet. You're the breakthrough someone is desperately waiting for. But you have to actually go. You have to actually speak. You have to actually show up. You can't deliver what you've been given if you stay hidden in safety. The conspiracy failed so you could be deployed, not so you could retire into comfortable obscurity. Comfort is the enemy of calling. Don't let the relief of survival make you forget the responsibility of purpose. There will be moments when you'll want to quit again, when the cost feels too high, when the loneliness feels too deep, when the opposition feels too strong. In those moments, remember this message. Remember that they already tried their worst and it didn't work. Remember that you carry a seal they cannot break. Remember that your life is not your own. It belongs to the mission. And the mission is bigger than you. It's about the generations that will come after you. It's about the trails you're blazing for those who are currently too young to know they'll need them. It's about the systems you're disrupting so that justice can finally flow. It's about the darkness you're exposing so that light can penetrate. It's about the kingdom of God advancing on earth as it is in heaven. That's what you're a part of. That's what you survived for. So when they come at you again, and they will, you'll know what to do. Stand. Pray. Trust. Obey. Move when God says move. Stay when God says stay. Speak when God says speak. Be silent when God says be silent. You're not operating by your own wisdom anymore. You're operating by divine intelligence that sees what you can't see and knows what you don't know. And when the victory manifests, when the vindication comes, when the doors open, when the provision flows, when the platform appears, give God the glory. Not in some fake humble way, but in genuine recognition that none of this was your doing. You didn't survive because you're special. You survived because you're chosen. And you're chosen because God needed someone who would say yes when everyone else said no. Your yes cost you everything. but your yes also positioned you for everything. The conspiracy was the price of admission into a level of purpose most people never access. They tried to make you pay with your life. Instead, you paid with your comfort, your reputation, your peace, your old identity. And what you received in return was worth infinitely more than what you gave up. You received clarity about who you are, authority to walk in your calling, favor that opens impossible doors, protection that withstands coordinated attacks, provision that defies natural logic, relationships that are divinely orchestrated, and a testimony that will shift atmospheres everywhere you go. That's not a fair trade. That's a supernatural upgrade. That's the exchange God offers to those who endure the fire without bowing to the flames. The governments tried to gang up on you. They mobilized their resources. They coordinated their strategies. They executed their plans with precision. And they failed. Not because they weren't powerful, but because you were untouchable. Not because they weren't smart, but because heaven is wiser. Not because they didn't try hard enough, but because God said no. And when God says no to your destruction, every force in hell has to obey. So lift your head, square your shoulders. Look at yourself in the mirror and see what they saw. A threat to every system built on lies. See what God sees, a chosen vessel prepared for such a time as this. See what heaven celebrates, a warrior who refused to break, even when breaking seemed easier than standing. You are not a victim of conspiracy. You are a survivor of warfare. You are not damaged goods. You are battle-tested and proven. You are not lucky. You are favored. You are not just getting by. You are walking in purpose. And every step forward from this moment is a step into the fullness of what you were created for. The revelation is complete. The conspiracy failed because your identity is secured in heaven, not on earth. Because your calling is sealed by blood, not by human agreement. Because your protection is supernatural, not natural. Because your provision flows from eternal sources, not temporal systems. Because you are chosen, set apart, anointed, and sent. And nothing, no government, no system, no power, no conspiracy can stop what God has ordained. They saw your light and tried to extinguish it. God saw their attempt and turned it into fuel. Now you burn brighter than ever before. Now you carry a flame that cannot be hidden. Now you walk with an authority that cannot be questioned by those who know how to discern. You are the evidence that heaven still backs its chosen ones. You are the proof that conspiracy against the anointed always fails. Walk in that truth. Live from that reality. Speak with that confidence. Move with that authority. Love with that security. Give with that abundance. Lead with that wisdom. Serve with that humility. And watch as the same God who brought you through the conspiracy uses you to dismantle the very systems that tried to destroy you. Not through violence, not through revenge, not through bitterness or rage, but through the power of a transformed life, through the testimony of impossible survival, through the demonstration of supernatural favor, through the manifestation of kingdom principles in earthly situations. You are the walking proof that their system doesn't have the final say, that their power is limited, that their reach has boundaries, that God is still God, and His word still stands. The conspiracy failed, but the calling succeeded. The attack came, but the anointing remained. The doors closed, but the destiny advanced. They tried, but God prevailed. And now you stand as a living testament to the faithfulness of the one who called you. Not perfect, not without scars, not claiming to have it all figured out, but standing, still here, still moving, still believing, still called, still chosen, still anointed, still protected, still provided for, still destined for greatness. This is your moment, not to celebrate survival, but to activate purpose, not to rest on past victories, but to advance into new territories. Not to tell everyone what you went through, but to show them what you're walking in. Let your life be the message. Let your peace be the proof. Let your progress be the testimony. Let your persistence be the sermon. You don't need to defend yourself anymore. Your existence is your defense. Your continued forward movement is your vindication. The governments tried to gang up on you. They failed, and their failure revealed your true identity. You are chosen. You are called. You are covered. You are coming into the fullness of your purpose, and nothing can stop what God has already set in motion. Walk forward, chosen one. Your time has come. Your season has shifted. Your destiny is calling. And the whole earth is waiting for you to step into who you really are. If this message has awakened something within you, if you feel the flame igniting in your spirit, click the like button and subscribe to Being Extraordinary. Leave the word chosen in the comments to seal this moment and affirm to the universe that you are fully living your calling. And for those who are ready to walk the path of spiritual and financial prosperity, don't forget to get your ebook, The Call to Prosperity. I will guide you through 10 spiritual and practical steps to align your spirit, your finances, and your purpose with divine order. It's not just information, it's activation. The link is in the description and pinned in the comments. And I want to thank immensely those who support us through Buy Me a Coffee. If you feel blessed and want to support us too, the link is also in the description. Thank you for being with us. God didn't bring you this far to leave you. He didn't preserve you through the conspiracy to abandon you in the manifestation. He's with you now, just as He was with you then. Trust Him, follow Him, obey Him, and watch as He does exceedingly, abundantly above all you could ask or imagine. The best is not behind you. The best is ahead, and you're finally ready to receive it.